What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, 1/4 through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about my top 10 point guards heading into the next season. Over the next couple weeks, this is a topic and thing that we're going to be doing over on Through the Wire. So I thought, why not after every episode of each position, why not bring my list to my own YouTube channel and go further in depth on why I have guys where, and then get some conversation and some dialogue with you guys in the comments and figure out your list, the things you disagree with, agree with, and why, and have some progressive basketball talk with my own viewership over here on Pee Wee the Plug. So a little disclaimer, I would say, on my psyche and how I go into these lists and rankings. I think it's important to understand that these are rankings, right? So they're due to change. You should expect them to change as each season goes on. And for me, it's about the year. So I think some players get rankings and lists like this misconstrued because they look at a player's overall career and they're like, how can you do that? Or how can you put him here when he's an MVP? When for me, I look at it as what you did mostly last year and somewhat of what I can project you to do this year. So it's a little bit of a mixture of those. I would say it's around 80, 20, 70, 30 of a little bit of like, okay, you had a stellar year last year. And then also just a little bit of what I can project for you to do. And there are some instances on this list where that will come into play and you'll understand what I mean with that. But without further ado, let's get right into it. At number 10, I have a guy who's come off a very outstanding year as far as winning. Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday has come off a championship playoff run with the Milwaukee Bucks. Then right after that, he went right over to the Olympics and helped that team win gold medal. So that was a very intriguing last couple of months for Jrue Holiday, especially considering the fact that earlier this year he got that big time mega deal. So that's all good. A hell of a year for Jrue Holiday, so to speak. But Jrue Holiday, I have him 10th just because, like I said, Jrue Holiday has been steady. He's been important to the Bucks, and he's a very valuable piece. Now, is he as valuable as some of the guys on his list? No, which is why he's 10th. But I still think that there is value in the role that he plays. And I also think that that's something to take into consideration. He's also in a position where his role may never allow him to be too high on this list, at least not this part of his career. And maybe that's just never who Jrue Holiday is. He's not necessarily a guy that you want to be, one of the main, if not the main guy on your team. But I feel like right now in the place where he is, behind a Giannis and then a Chris Middleton is exactly, where you want Jrue Holiday. If Jrue Holiday is your third best player, you're probably doing what the Bucks just did and won a championship. And I think in that role, it's best for him to give you the fullest value. But then also for himself, it's probably best to win and to have that full full contention ability, but at the same time, it's never going to allow him to statistically be on the par of some of these guys. But I also think that that's the thing with Jrue Holiday is even when he's by himself, he's probably never, going to be a Damian Lillard, Steph Curry type scorer anyway. So to get the full value out of Jrue, I think this is the perfect situation for him, and I'm happy for him. He thugged it out with the Pelicans and AD. They had that nice little situation that year Rondo was over there with them, and they were able to upset the Portland Trail Blazers and sweep them. But then he had a lot of injury situations going on with the Pelicans. Before that in Philly, he was able to snag an all-star game. And then, over the last few years, he kind of went under the radar and was a bit of underrated, I would say. And now we're put in a position where he's able to be on a national platform and go through a playoff run. He did have some moments in the playoffs where it was like, okay, Jrue, we need you to come alive. It looks like the Bucks are missing your presence out there a bit, especially on the offensive end, because we know what he can do on the defensive end. But all in all, I think we're able to say that he was one of the missing pieces that Bucks team needed, especially the things he can do on defense. There's not a lot of guys, if any, on this list that can do what he do defensively. If we made this list top 10 defensive point guards. Now Jrue Holiday is one or two, without a doubt, easily. And I think that's where his value comes in. But overall, I think 10 is perfect for him. And I think Jrue Holiday would much rather be 10th on a championship team than to be on a team that's not a championship level team and maybe being 7th at the highest other than that. So I think this is the fine median for Jrue Holiday, and I'm super comfortable and happy to at least have him in the top 10 because, like I said, there was a while where Jrue Holiday, and still even sometimes we can underrate Jrue Holiday, but I'm glad he's there at number 10 for me. At number 9, here's a guy that I think is the perfect definition of what I meant in my disclaimer. This is a guy who statistically has had great years over the last few years. Or his entire career statistically, he's been very, very, very great. But going into this next year, it's hard for me to project what he's going to do statistically, and I'm also not sure if statistically at this point in his career and this part of of where he at and where the status of what he's playing for, I don't even think stats really matter. So it's kind of hard to project because it's a very unpredictable situation he's walking into. And at number 9, I have Russell Westbrook. I know a lot of people may hear this and be like, man, that's extremely low for Russell Westbrook. And it is, because I've been a Russell Westbrook lover and defender for the last, I don't know how many years, ever since Durant left and everybody was talking down on Russell Westbrook and trying to overrate the triple doubles and take away his MVP. I was one of those people defending him in every situation and every turn, whether it was on Twitter, the podcast. I love Russ, his game, his demeanor, his motor. I love it all. But at this point in his career, at this stage, I think we're a little bit past the triple doubles. As impressive and as good and as difficult as they may be, I think now, after winning the MVP, having success by himself, averaging the triple double so many years, that it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's old because I don't want to taint the difficulty, because if it was that easy, everybody would do it. But at the same time, it's like we know he can do it. Now, at this point, what I personally want to see from Russell Westbrook is him play championship basketball. I want to see his value be in that. Can he contribute to championship winning basketball? We've seen a championship run when it was him, KD, and James Harden that one time against the Heat, and they lost. And then since then, they haven't gotten back for a multitude of reasons. It's not Russell Westbrook's fault single-handedly at no point. And we've seen the success of him as your guy. As your guy in OKC, he took you to some playoffs, early exits, MVP, but nowhere near contention. Him with Paul George, same recipe. Like, solid team that you hope can get to the second round and surprise some people, but they really just first round exits and never could really get over that hump. We seen him as the role of second fiddle back when he was in Houston with James Harden, which was like a year ago, and it was cool, but I think that there was a ceiling for that. And they were able to get past the first round, but they went into the Lakers, and if we remember, they deconstructed the whole roster and really went ultra small to unlock Russell's value for them. But at the same time, to unlock that, they put themselves in a position to where they were going to be capped. It was hard to see them really being a contending team with no size. And the Lakers, being as big as they were able to expose that in the bubble. And then this past year, there was a lot of circumstances with the Washington Wizards' health and just being a very, kind of all over the place team. They still kind of was just regular. Even if they had full health and whatever, they were still never probably going to be this crazy contending team. They did still win against Philly in the first round, but it just wasn't anything there that was concrete to make you be like, oh man, this could be something. And again, Russell Westbrook had great counting numbers, averaged a triple-double, was a big part of them putting together a late season ending, splur to getting into the playoffs to begin with. But it ultimately was kind of the same old story where it's like Russ is going to be great statistically, as far as the triple doubles and whatnot, and it'll be enough to get you to the playoffs, but it won't give you anything drastic. You know what I mean? It's not putting you in a position to where you can really accomplish that full main goal. And now, after all those years, he's with the Lakers. And the thing about the Lakers is they have two guys who are hierarchy than him. Right now, Russell Westbrook isn't going to come in and say, I'm the third best player. He's going to feel like he's the best player because that's just Russell Westbrook. But in reality, Anthony Davis and LeBron are going to be, probably on the hierarchy than him, higher on the hierarchy than him. So he is, for the first time, the third best player on a team. But if you put it on paper, it should kind of be like Jrue Holiday, where if like Russell Westbrook is your third best player, you should probably be walking into a championship. And I think they can. As different as it and crazy as it can be, the West to me is still a little bit open. Not even a little bit, but it's open for a team like the Lakers to go right and get themselves a finals appearance. Kawhi is out. Jamal Murray won't be there for the Nuggets. So I feel like that puts a dent in the West. And when you talk about LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, that should be enough. The only thing about it is, how does it work? And that's what I mean about Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook may not be able to average a triple-double this year, but can he still contribute and play high-level basketball? That's what we're going to be left to be seen. And how are they going to make it work? Is Russell Westbrook going to play with the ball and LeBron is going to be off the ball? Is Russell Westbrook going to be off the ball and LeBron is going to? How is it? They have their hands full and how they're going to make it work. On paper, the talent is there. The stars can align for them because some of the best West teams are going to be hit with injuries already. But they're going to need a Russell Westbrook to buy in and do some things he may not have done over the last few years. And I think if he can do that and be effective and be Russell Westbrook, he can shoot up this list. But if not, then Russell Westbrook may stay where he's at or even fall. And that's just the reality of it, because we've seen him as a number one. It can only get you so far. We've seen him as a number two. It's potential, but you know what I mean? It was, one time they got to the finals in OKC, and it was shaky a little bit after that. Even the Paul George and Harden situations are Beal, they were all first round exits. Now as the third guy, this should be a cakewalk, and we should be talking about a championship. And I'm hoping so, because I'm a Russ fan. And we spent a little bit more time than I thought on Russ, but I love him so much that I don't want to make my ranking feel like I'm, downplaying him or disrespecting him, because he gets so much disrespect. But I do think, even as a Russell Westbrook fan, we have to be able to hold him accountable and say, let's see you show us some value without the triple-double shit and play winning basketball, you know what I mean, and be effective. I don't think that's too much to ask of a Hall of Famer who is still trying to get that championship ring. So that's what I have Russ. At number 8, I have Ja Morant. Now again, Ja Morant, counting numbers wise, if we went off Basketball Reference, his numbers aren't anywhere near Russell Westbrook. But Ja Morant, for me, puts his team in a position to where they can win. And I think that is highly valuable when you look at his age and his experience as a professional athlete, and you look at the circumstances surrounding his Grizzly team. This is a guy who has put his team in position the last couple years as a rookie, as a sophomore, to be a playoff team in the crowded Western Conference, kind of alone. Don't misunderstand me, because I know I've been one of the guys that say Jonas Valanciunas is one of the most underrated big men the past season or two. He's had that. But when I say alone, this team was put together to feature him and Jaren Jackson as that 1-2 punch, sprinkled in with a Dillon Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Valanciunas, and other different moving parts. But Jaren Jackson hasn't been available or healthy a lot, and it still hasn't affected Ja Morant. And even without his counting numbers being gaudy or anything like that, he still found a way to be effective and be the engine to this team to allow them to compete. And whenever he's put in a position to where his game has to elevate or rise, he always does to answer it. When they went against the Warriors in the play-in game, he gave them 30 plus on a that was like a game 7. They stole one in Utah. He averaged 19 and something on the season, but when it came to the playoffs, he averaged 30 and 8 against one of the best defenses in the league, with a guy in Rudy Gobert who takes away the paint from you, and he still averaged 30. And they had to bring Donovan Mitchell back a little bit more faster, because without Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz were ultimately in trouble. I don't know. I know a lot of people look on paper and it was just a quick series on paper, but the Grizzlies had a lot of chances and opportunities to be alive and extend that series even further. But ultimately, the Jazz show why they were the better team. And for those reasons, Ja Morant, is high on this list. And again, I'm projecting him to even take another step forward in the upcoming season. And that's a part of why I have him higher than Jrue and Russ. But Ja Morant is still growing into that higher echelon, and it's been a joy to watch him over the last few years, and I can't wait to see exactly where they take this team. I'm a little skeptical about the overall success of the team because I'm questionable about some of the moves they made, but I am almost confident and sure that Ja Morant is going to be even better numbers-wise and effective-wise, and if the team doesn't have some of the same success, it won't be because of Ja Morant and his contributions or effectiveness to play winning basketball. It'll be because his team got worse and the West got better. So Ja Morant right there at 8. At 7, I have De'Aaron Fox. Kind of the same reasons why I have Ja Morant where I have him. I think De'Aaron Fox has been in one of the most toughest situations that we've seen. The Sacramento Kings just countlessly make bad decision after bad decision. But even with those bad decisions and so many things going wrong, you look at a season like last year, De'Aaron Fox had that team in playoff conversation for a lot of the season. And then at the last part of the season, he got hurt and couldn't finish out with them, and they obviously went out of it. But I think when you look at that overall team and you think that they even had a chance, it says so much about De'Aaron Fox, the heart and soul of this team. The guy is quietly playing all-star level, like 25 and 7 he was averaging, and he had some explosive games where he was 30, 36, 33 just consecutively. If you look at his game logs, you'll see he has stretches where he's legitimately putting the Sacramento Kings on his back, and if he had just a squint more of help, that team probably is in a play-in or potentially making the playoffs. You know what I mean? Some of the picks that they've had over the last few years haven't played to the capability of they've thought. The Marvin Bagley situation hasn't been great at all. This is a guy that they took in a draft class that had Trey Young, that had Luka, that they missed out on. Jaren Jackson's of the world. Even Jaren Jackson's injury, when he's on the court, we can see what he's about. The Marvin Bagley situation just hasn't been really good at all. And the Buddy Hield saga, if you're going to trade him, start him, bring him off the bench, he's unhappy. The Luke Walton thing, some points of the season, Tyrese Halliburton was the second best player as a rookie. It was just very, very strange over there in Sacramento. But De'Aaron Fox gives them that bit of hope, even with so much going wrong around them. And I think, he falls under the radar sometimes. And I think 7 is a good spot for him. And, hopefully this year they can get some stability. Maybe some guys play better than we expect. Maybe they make a move with Buddy Hield or something and go in the right direction. But I would love to see De'Aaron Fox be put in a situation where his abilities can be on full display for the rest of the world, and we can really, really see him at the highest level. But I have De'Aaron Fox at 7. At 6, I have Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving at 6 seems a bit low. Because Kyrie on any given night can be 1 or 2 on this list. He's one of the most talented and skillful players in the entire league. But one of the things with Kyrie is definitely the injury and health concerns. How much can you rely and count on him to be there, especially in that late stretch where the playoffs are? He's missed a lot of time over the years. But when he is on the floor, like I said, he's as good as anybody else on this list. A guy that was 50, 40, 90. Willing to do anything that the Nets asked him to do. When I watch film on the Nets, I sometimes see him guarding bigs. Like, I was watching film on Rui Hachimura, and Kyrie Irving was guarding him. He got that assignment and was really down there trying to guard him and defend him. When they brought in James, Kyrie, you're the point guard, I'll be the shooting guard. Knowing that James Harden likes and prefers the ball to be in his hand, Kyrie just took full responsibility on letting James Harden play in his full, his full environment and element, to have the ball and play at his type of pace and style. And I think that was real nice for Kyrie to do, to allow James Harden to be comfortable, and then also to recognize that, hey, I'm Kyrie Irving. I can play in a lot of different ways, and getting buckets off the ball, on the ball, off a screen, off the dribble is all the same. And his efficiency shows that he is like that. You know what I mean? You put the ball in his hand, he can get a bucket. You bring him off a staggered curl, he can get a bucket, pick and roll. So Kyrie Irving is definitely six. But I think things like this playing a part, because projecting him is tough, because again, the availability, especially during the playoffs. Like, I really truly believe if Kyrie Irving was healthy, the Nets season ends different and it goes a different way, if you get what I'm saying. Not to discredit the Bucks, but I definitely think that Kyrie Irving not playing helped. But if Kyrie Irving is fully healthy, James Harden and the Nets are fully healthy like they will be this year, I think we see a lot of crucial plays and buckets from Kyrie Irving that can maybe catapult him in this list. And that's all I think. Like, next year, fully healthy, they have an extremely great playoff run and potentially have a finals run and win the finals. That doesn't come without big performances from Kyrie, which will catapult him on his list. But as of now, compared to the others on this list and the seasons that they just had, I have to put Kyrie at 6. It just feels extremely low. But I have no doubt in my mind that Kyrie Irving will work his way back into the top 5 with a healthy season next year. At 5, talking about last year, Chris Paul. Chris Paul, at his age, had a tremendous year, and they had an incredible playoff run that was, magical. It was really magical. And though I'm not anyone that believes or thinks that Chris Paul is the reason they got to the final, because I am a believer that the Suns had a very good team that they've been building on the last few years. And I think James Jones deserves a lot of credit. Monty deserves a lot of coaching credit based off what he did with that team the previous year and how they went 8-0 in the bubble. The fact that they were even invited to the bubble after Aiden had missed 20 to 25 games. And I think you take all of that into consideration and you think about the upgrade from Rubio to Chris Paul. You add in a Jay Crowder, another year of experience for the wings, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. That team was primed to do the things that they did, though none of us would have guessed that they would go all the way to the finals and play 6 games. But I do think that they were primed to have a playoff run and a playoff caliber season. And Chris Paul is a big part of that. I don't think he put them on his back and was an MVP carrying his team, but I think his presence and his value does that. And again, with the counting stats, yeah, Chris Paul at 36, 37, he's not going to give me 25 and 11 like he used to in New Orleans. But you can see his value by what he does to teams. He goes to teams and elevate them. You know what I mean? He elevates teams without having to give you 25 and 12. And that's what I mean about Russell Westbrook with the Lakers. I want to see that same type of thing where you can make a team better without statistically having to get these numbers. And I think it's value in that, and that's why we call him a point guard and one of the best floor generals that we've seen. So Chris Paul at 5. Great year for Chris Paul. At 4, this was the one that made a lot of people go crazy and react to and call me out of my mind. I have Damian Lillard at 4. Dame had an incredible season last year. He had an incredible playoff performance against the Nuggets that him and his team ultimately, unfortunately, lost to, which was just not a good look. Not that it was his fault in any shape or form. Like I said, we saw the 55-point game. He averaged 30-plus against them in that round. But he's even said that them losing was unacceptable, and it was just something that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be losing to a team that's down a player how they did. But still, Damian Lillard is a guy that on any given night can have 50. Portland has had some solid teams, but I think we may have thought that they've been better because Damian Lillard is on a team. I looked at last year's team, and I thought that they were going to be better going into the season just from on paper. And I think part of that was because I look how good a Damian Lillard is. And I'm like, oh, they got Damian Lillard. They got Robert Covington. Nurkic will be back. And CJ and Melo. And you know what I mean? At the time, Gary Trent Jr. But you're looking at those guys, and you're looking at them surrounding Dame. And it's like, oh, they're going to be super, super crazy. When unfortunately, those teams are just really solid. And I don't want to make it seem like it's anything about Dame, but I definitely would like to see Dame leave. I'm one of those people. I want to see Dame leave, not so he can be higher on my list, you know what I mean, or anything like that, because him being fourth has nothing to do with himself. It's really just I value the three other guys ahead of him more, and I take in consideration the things that they did last year, and I just prefer those guys in their season last year versus his. But I do think that based off last season with Dame and them losing and how he lost with having the game that he had, and even those moments where he's just carrying them and it's still not enough, that it's probably time for them to leave just because there's really no room for them to drastically get better. And when you look around, teams are constantly, especially in the Western Conference, getting better and better and better. And I think there's a way for him to leave and go somewhere to potentially compete at a higher level without him cheating the grind. Like, for example, if Damian Lillard was traded for Ben Simmons and he went and played with Joel Embiid in Philly in the East, he's not cheating the grind. He didn't go link up or anything, and I think he would still have to elevate his game and play at a high level for them to win a championship. They wouldn't be cakewalking into a championship if he went to Philly. He would still have to go and play and earn that championship. So I think we gotta hope for that, because if it's anybody deserving of at least a chance, it's Damian Lillard and Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. You know what I mean? Like the loyalty they've had, the grind that they've had, and the focus and the level of play that they've played at, they all deserve shots. And after seeing Chris Paul have his shot, it would be nice to see some other guys who've been loyal and as dedicated as Dame and Russ also have that opportunity, especially Dame, because he's never played in the finals. At least Russ played. CP3 just played. Dame deserves a chance. So salute to Dame in Portland, but I do want to see Dame leave. And number 3, I have Trey Young. Again, this is another decision in my rankings that had people, going crazy, whatever, even though it's just one spot, literally just one spot. And I'm taking Trey Young just based off the playoff run that he had, man. I really think, people are kind of underrating that run, for the outlash that I saw from when I put Trey at 3. It really makes me think people are kind of underrating that run. They were kind of the underdogs in every series. Remember, my Knicks were supposed to beat up Trey and lock him up, and that didn't happen, and they kind of won that series easily against Philly. After they beat the Knicks, it was like, oh, Trey Young and the Hawks, now they gonna really feel it now. It's Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle. It's a lot of size and length, and it's going to bother him. And Joel Embiid, ain't no answer for him. And I was one of the people saying all of these things just like everybody else. And Philly was a top dog. And the Atlanta Hawks, led by Trey Young, won that series. They won in Philly. And even when Trey Young didn't have his best games, and even when he was struggling, that team was winning and had chances to win, because the amount of pressure that he constantly puts on defenses with the high pick and roll, the ability to shoot, the ability to score, the floater, his passing, the reads he makes, it's constant and it's nonstop. All of the gravity he causes and creates, and when it comes to playoff basketball, it's all about the easiest buckets. How many easy buckets can you get? And throughout the course of a game, Trey Young constantly generates alley-oops, lobs, floaters, easy, non-stop baskets. And then when it comes to crunch time, all you need is a shot or two, and he's good for those. And it just puts you in a position to always have a chance to win no matter who you're going against. And I think for him to lead that team in his first playoff run with no other all-star caliber player, and for the most part, that's a very young team that he was leaving. It's him, Collins, Herter. They had a couple of veterans, Gallinari, Lou Williams, and Clint Capella. But for the most part, they're a relatively young team. Cam Reddish was hurt. DeAndre Hunter was hurt. And they were still able to make it happen. And they went even tough against the Bucks. And, you know, him and Giannis had their injuries or whatnot. And that kind of made the series fizzle out or whatnot. Because, you know, the Bucks are better than the Hawks without Giannis than the Hawks without Trey Young, if that makes sense. So if you take away Trey Young and you take away Giannis, the Bucks thrash, you know, much better than the Hawks. And overall, the Bucks are the better team. But even for them to, you know, not get swept or not get ran up and off the court showed a lot for them. And I can't guarantee that they're going to have the same exact playoff run. Maybe that was a little, you know, premature. That's going to put added pressure, but I still think that was impressive. And I think Trey Young has legit MVP qualities in his league, and I think respect should go on his name. And I also think a lot of guys are going to want to play with him. I think he's a guy that is going to be like a Steve Nash and Steph Curry of this next generation, where he's going to be a guy that other stars would want to come and play with, because he's going to be fun, he's going to be selfless, and you can still get yours next to his. So that's why I have Trey Young at third. Don't shoot me, Damian Lillard fans. It's just an opinion. But at 2, I have Luka. Luka is a guy that, man, next season it wouldn't surprise me if he was number 1. You know, it's similar to Trey a little bit in the sense of he's doing this stuff at a very early age. And he's just kind of unbelievable. The amount of pressure that he constantly puts on defenses is actually really nobody out there that can stop him. You know what I mean? And he just makes the game so much easier for the others around him. We're talking about a guy that in consecutive years have given the Clippers nonstop buckets when they have 2 of the top perimeter defenders in the league, Kawhi and Paul George, and he's still getting his on any given night. And the recipe to kind of beat the Mavericks is to just make the others beat you. And that's kind of really the fault of this team right now, is they don't have the others yet that can step up on a consistent basis, especially in the playoffs, to help them, you know, win a series. Things can change, because I don't think Porzingis that we saw in last year's playoff series is going to be the Porzingis that we're always going to see. I expect him to play better. But then again, at the same time, I don't know if the Tim Hardaway Jr. that we got for majority of that series is always going to be the Tim Hardaway. You know, Tim Hardaway was at a point where he was shooting almost 50% from 3 at a high clip and was playing outstanding basketball. So the Mavericks have some adjustments that they're going to have to make over the next few years of adding talent around Luka that can help him in the playoffs and get out of that first round. But Luka is the real deal. Unstoppable at times. And again, like Trey, he just is nonstop. The funny thing though is, it's like actually what I told somebody too about the Trey Young thing is, like, if Luka has that run that Trey Young has, we're probably saying Luka is number 1. So it was kind of weird for me for people to say like me having Trey over Dame was wild, because like even if you disagree, it's only one spot. So if you disagree, I'm fine with it. But for people to say it was wild, it was crazy, it was a hot take, it's like, why is it different for Trey? Because if all people are waiting on is a run from Luka, Luka is number 2 without any playoff success. And I know a lot of it has nothing to do with him, but it's still a loss. It's the same, you know what I mean? If we hold all great players the same way. So what do we say? How is Luka like undoubtedly number 2, arguably number 1, without any real playoff success? And then Trey Young gets the playoff success, and it's blasphemous that I put him at 3. That was head scratching to me, because it isn't like Trey Young leaned on anybody or had like this other co-star that saved him or anything. His success came from him. The Hawks don't do half of that, any of that, without Trey Young. So that was kind of the part that was weird to me. Is it like, we can crown Luka, we can praise Luka, give all the credit to Luka, but it's like Trey Young's has to be like, no, we can't give too much credit to Trey Young. Chill on the Trey, he ain't there yet. And it's like, we got to be consistent. That was my whole thing. And then number one is Steph Curry. I mean, a guy teams a double team and triple team and right past the half court line, and he was still giving you 30 on efficient as hell numbers. It was a sight to see. I really do wish they could have snuck into the playoffs, because I would have loved to see, the number one seeded Jazz against this new Warriors that's kind of under the radar, the underdog for the first time. We haven't seen them be in a situation and really be led by Steph in a while, because obviously Durant came and it was kind of like, oh, we know the Warriors are going to win. So it was nice to see them in that underdog role, but I definitely would have liked it if they made it in that playoffs. And there was a stretch where it was like, man, even with the Warriors being as low as they are, Steph is playing MVP basketball. You know what I mean? And it was incredible. Because Steph had a lot of doubters, and there was a lot of people quick to hate and say different things about Steph when they weren't having their typical success. That was extremely weird, because Steph is such a likable dude. Even when he's off the court, it's like I didn't know that many people were so thirsty to see Steph not have success. It's like, who is waiting on Steph Curry to fail or hoping he fails to badmouth Steph Curry? He's just a great guy. Changed the game, makes the game fun. He's always fun to watch. He's never really done shit to make me look at him and say, man, I hope Steph Curry, Steph, or Steph ain't that good. Like, I just didn't know people were out there waiting to discredit Steph. Twitter and that social media is just a weird place. But yeah, incredible season. I hope that they can build on that. Obviously, Clay is going to come back sometime early next season. Won't be there from day one, but that's going to be good to see him back. They drafted some young guys that I think can contribute at some level this season. And then obviously James Wiseman, seeing how he is as a sophomore coming into the year, is going to be good. But hopefully they can get into the playoffs, because it'll be nice to see Steph in a 7-game series have some of those magical moments that we saw. Even against the Lakers, he was trying to thug it out and get them in the playoffs. And I really feel like they could have potentially made a little run to upset the Utah Jazz or whatnot. But yeah, Steph Curry is my number one point guard going into the next season. Like I said, this list is made for change. I am by no way guaranteeing that this is going to be the same 10 next season and throughout the year. It's going to change. It's made to change. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting into shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, and centers. Like I said earlier, did this to hear y'all opinions in the comments. I want to know everything you agree with, you disagree with. I want to know your list and why. Please let me know in the comments. And like I said, let me know why. Don't tell me, oh, I disagree. Let me know why. That's the type of basketball talk that I like to have and that I present on my channel. I like progressive basketball talk where even when we disagree, we're able to give our reasons to why, so we can see different perspectives and bring it all together to learn from one another. If you're new, leave a like and subscribe. As always, I'm Pee Wee the Plug. This is NBA Weekly. I will see you guys for the shooting guard list soon. I'm out. Peace.